started the stream on the wrong screen there. Sometimes I feel like I'm very technologically challenged. Let me just check one thing. My compressor's on so I don't deafen you with the music. Hopefully at some stage someone will come on and tell me that they can hear me okay and that I haven't got the mic switched off or anything crazy like I've done in the past. Okay, so I have February alerts, been monitoring, so 204 we have alerted for February. January I had 74, so it's a bit less, but then I've obviously been making a lot more since then. So the problem is now, having done so much with updating all of them, I now have to keep them updated, which is more challenging. But at least now I guess everything is charted, whereas before, like when I was running through the first set, not everything was charted. So I just guess I'm going to start from the top. So yeah, we've had a mix. I hope you really can hear me because there's noise outside now which isn't helping my cause. Yeah, we've had a mix of alerts, and obviously, so in many of the charts, maybe to find something that's got more history, just to talk in general. Yeah, I mean, what I'm liking about the alts at the moment is that they all look quite different. But in many cases, we've hit some major supply up here. In this case, it's the grey is an annual, and then monthly at the highs up here, and it went significantly higher into it after a 3-month inside, and then we dropped, and then in many cases we're testing either a monthly or a 3-weekly demand down here for the coins that have the bigger history. And I've commented when I was updating all the other charts that, you know, that all these zones had been tested quite a lot, and as I started to get towards the end, which I guess was around probably the end of January, start of Feb, I could see this happening, and that I was then it was becoming increasingly hard to choose which which zones to use. So if you've got, like in this case, you've got a 2-day there and 2-day there. In many cases, we've got 5 days and 4 days, etc., all coming through here. So I thought there was going to be a risk that we were going to start running through things, and that is exactly what's happened. Slightly annoyingly, I was a little off on the timing for the lows. Like I had a lot of lows, long entries at the lows on many charts at this monthly or 3-week level, but because it took the better part of a month to start moving, I then was more focused on where are the short entries going to come in, rather than thinking, oh, this is a major zone, and we could get significant bounces off them. So in some cases, so in the case of this AKRO, you know, we've just reached, in this case, it's got a monthly supply above, which not many do have. So this is a better short, and obviously shows why it's kind of moved less significantly, plus coming off the yearly supply. But a lot of them you've had to look at structurally to see, you know, where are they coming from, where are they going to. You know, just because it's coming off the yearly supply doesn't mean we can't long on the monthly demand, or in fact 2 monthly demand, I think, is there. But again, you need to be quite conscious that this is still in that macro downtrend and has come off the supply at the top of the start of the down move. So at this point, we don't know that this 2-month is going to hold, but obviously it's a 2-month demand. It's certainly worth looking at for a long entry. But we're still very much at the point of, are things going to make higher highs or not? And we'll see with some of the other charts, obviously they have, and some like this one looks a bit weaker. Let's see if I can find one that has made a higher high at this point. ANKR? No. API, that must have done. Yeah. So in the case of API, for example, I mean, this hadn't hit, I don't believe, a monthly, or it was a multiple test. Okay, so in this case, yeah, this had a monthly supply here, and it's tested it multiple times, unable to make new lows, and now has pounded up to the top monthly zone, hence short entry up here. So they're really quite variable in structure, and obviously the ones that work, the ones that the shorts have worked are the weaker in structure, and the ones that the shorts haven't worked, in this case I didn't have one until all the way up the top here. But in many cases also, annoyingly, they haven't come back down. So what I was hoping when leaving a lot of the shorts in is that when we had, you know, these rejections, depending on the chart, similar to here, that we'd at least get long entries. And in many cases they just took off and haven't come back down to any sort of area that I would like to long, which has made it slightly more challenging. But we have had a few long entries more recently, so that's good. Okay, ARPA's, yeah, like a decent example. So this is something that's come off a monthly supply. It's already had a big wick through monthly supply, and then it's held monthly demand, or 2 monthly demand, and then it's going for the second go. So this can still, so structures like this were worth having the short just for observation, because they can just triangle here, and then at least you can get the retracement, which is what I was hoping for a lot of them, to get the triangle, the retracement, and then the next push. And in some cases we've got that, but in many cases it's just had a brief pause here. Like I said, the ones that hit earlier in the month have just paused here when the market was still so strong and just pushed straight through. And this is one that might do the same. So it came down to 2 monthly demand last year, in fact, and then this time it's come back to 3 weekly demand. So this is quite indicative of what a lot of the charts look like, actually. They had the swing fail of the monthly supply, or the 3 monthly supply, didn't break the monthly structure, and thus is getting this second push. But at this point, some of these, like, still, it just really depends. Like, the timing has a lot to do with it, you know, are they gonna break and continue this upward structure? We don't know, because we're still fighting with this zone. So hence, as always, trading in both directions anyway. And a lot of them are going to be interesting towards the end of this month. This is not an example of it, but this one, for example, will have a 3 weekly demand, potentially, if it closes strong in the next 13 days. It's still a way off, but a lot of these, just keep an eye on where these monthly levels may get put in below, because they might get early bounces for you to get long entries on. Yeah, so that's kind of generally across the market. And then on top of that, I think if you watched my earlier stream on Bitcoin, you know, I talked about, again, I've said this a few times, like total 2, which is including Ether but excluding BTC. This was never a zone that I particularly thought was a solid short, but was okay with it if we broke the weekly demand, which we never did. And then I've got the other push, and much prefer to look for shorts, market-wide shorts, when we get up here, and same for Ether. Total 3 is basically the same, relatively slightly weaker still in that daily supply, but again, now has new weekly demand, or 3 weekly demand, I think, in the case of this. I think this may have tested it already. Yeah, so had a 3 weekly demand and then just tapped off the top of it here before pushing up. But again, still got quite a lot of space if it wants to go up to the monthly supply. So again, fighting a little bit with this channel. Total 2 have the same channel. I know Ether has that channel. I haven't got it drawn here. Let me put that in. Yeah, so that's still within the channel. Total 3, similar, is just tapping, trying to get out the top of the channel there. And again, same structure as in this daily supply, and you know, can reject in this kind of area, but preferably would like it up, you know, 61 fib, monthly supply, better confluence if we can get higher. So I'm wondering at this stage, you know, are we going to get another dip down into this weekly for another push? So total 3 is excluding Ether, and then we've got others which I discovered more recently, which is excluding the top 10, which again is showing much more strength than total 2 and total 3, because the alts generally have been stronger than the majors have, or the other random shitcoins have been stronger than the majors have been. So let me just turn this music down slightly, since I don't think there's anybody here to validate me. It's slightly nerve-wracking when there's nobody validating that they can actually hear you. So here I've got the red dash line for the monthly potential monthly demand. So we're looking for those to hold a retest if they confirm by the end of the month. We've got 10 days to go. So there is a possibility, you know, we kind of push into higher into here, and reject, and then hold this monthly demand for a second move. And alternatively, a nice easy, if we break monthly demand, that'll be a flip to supply, and then I'll be much, much more bearish, like I always wanted at the lows, for us to get down into this yearly zone. And yes, we can hold off the top here. Put that in since we're here. But it's a question, you know, now are we just backing up only, or are we going to get some COVID style C wave? And the same applies to a lot of the alts on that. So let's go back to the alts. And then, yeah, then in contrast, we've then got some of the new ones. So the new ones, just a hit and miss on zones, you know, it's luck of the draw if they're going to hold, because the history isn't there, and really calling them supply or demand is highly dubious on such low time frames with no structure supporting. So we have no determination of whether they're strong or weak, really. Like, why is this stopped here at 0.004? I mean, it's possible that this has some history on on like Uniswap or whatever, if it was released somewhere else prior that I haven't got on this chart. But so yeah, some of these are working and some of them are not. But yeah, luck of the draw, and rather annoyingly things like this. So this is kind of happening to me a fair bit this month, which is frustrating, where I put an alert for the 3-day demand, but then it's held just the daily a little bit higher before taking off and not coming back for my entry, which is kind of annoying. So yeah, let's start at the top. NFT. Yeah, so it's going to be much quicker if I do this without the mic, because then I haven't got to commentate all the zones, but just so anyone who's learning can kind of understand a bit. So obviously, this is a 2-month chart, we're in a significant downtrend, 2-month supply all the way up there, 2-month supply here, 2-month supply here, which we're testing and have already tested. So essentially this is a retest of 2-month supply. We've come up into it once very, very hard. We haven't retraced back down to where I would have liked a long entry, and now it's retesting. So things like this, you don't really want to be looking for longs right in supply, unless, you know, well, I say that, but obviously the market's very bullish and we are going through supply still at the moment. But personally for me, I'd rather look for alts that are testing somewhere lower rather than buying them, assuming a breakout before it's actually happened. So in this case, dropped, retesting, and then we had a weekly supply in here. Again, it has already been tested, so a lot of these zones have been tested, so again, they're not even high probability shorts necessarily. So monthly supply, we're doing the bigger retest of monthly supply now, and are we going to make a lower high? Is this going to triangle, or are we going to zigzag and take another wave lower? So in the case of something like this, I'll just leave the alert down there for now. What else? Then I've got an alert on the 2-month supply up here, should it push through. So it's just like I say, it's just not making the assumption it's going to push through at this stage. So there's no, and you know, if there's new 2-week or weekly demand, I'd be inclined to put a local long entry, but at the moment there isn't. Well, we do have this level here, but again, that for me would have been too aggressive a long entry. I would want more of a retracement back down into the discount of the range. So we've got a 3-day demand here. So these again are the difficult ones, because yes, we have a 3-day demand in here, but until it breaks this high, this is a weak 3-day demand. But it's at that point that you then figure out if you're going to be drawing some sort of a triangle, like this, with the low coming in at the test on that 3-day somewhere, or are you going to be doing that bigger C wave? So in some cases I am alerting this zone. In this case I won't, because this hasn't hit a significant level for me. Yes, it's kind of can potentially have flipped over here, but if this had hit monthly demand, I'd be more inclined to look for a re-entry on the long side. But as it stands, I'm not, so yeah, so that's the kind of one I would just be looking at. Is it going to roll over or not? Can you get a short in here? And then look at BONK. So BONK is another similar one. I would have wanted the bigger drop down to this weekly down here. Let's see what the monthly is doing. So may create a monthly demand, in which case I'd be inclined to long it, but I'm going to have to go through at the end of the month and just see what's created monthly demand, but that's a relatively quick move. I'll check all the charts. So here we've got a 2 weekly supply. It's a weak one because it hasn't closed below the green candle. But I did have short entry there. I also have an aggressive short entry. I think that would have been a weekly supply here, because why not? It's just always worth looking. So yeah, and I think I said at the time, you know, that had flipped and then had broken also this. Actually, no, I think it was big time. I'm mixing it up with big time. But yeah, like, because a lot of these had these sort of downtrend triangles, that it was obviously a risky and aggressive short entry there anyway, which didn't work, and now added a long entry on the new weekly demand. Look at that. So there's a new weekly demand, but we still haven't broken. I haven't gone as high as I would like in weekly supply actually, but it's a weekly demand that's worth looking at least. BONK is like more than NFT. It's not hit a decent zone at the lows, but it's only a 12-hour or an 8-hour in there. In fact, it's an 8-hour. So there's that 8-hour zone that we're holding at the lows. See if there's a daily. So yeah, and it's not even just holding over the top of the daily level here. It's struggling a little bit. So yeah, I want to see this come down a bit lower to the weekly there, or even the daily inside if we get a bigger drop. And then next zone up here of interest, what have I got? I've got a 3-day. Yeah, 3-day, and then there's a daily, I think, just underneath that, so the alert's a little bit lower. If we do get up there now, then you've got the risk that it's going to flip something into a demand, or into a weekly or a 2-weekly demand. So that's something, hi Daniel, that is something that you're going to be slightly wary of. But yeah, I'm okay with leaving that there at the moment. Like I say, some of these are just not working, so we need to be quite wary of the short entries, because a lot of things obviously are just taking off straight through them. But like I say, BONK is a little bit over-egged. You know, it has gone up one of the most probably of all the alts since the start of the year or the end of last year. And my aggressive short entries at the start on monthly supply before it just ploughed straight through it. Yeah, so I wouldn't mind this seeing this lower before looking for longs. I just think there's probably better things, and there's going to be a lot of people who were trying to long the top up here because it was such a hype coin. So I'm okay with leaving the short on that, and then even the long entry here, if we get a retest to hold. It's all just looking for scalps at the moment, really. But yeah, that's okay, it doesn't need any updates. BTT, yeah, this is an interesting one. BTT was one of the, again, it was also an early one to kick off, and it was one that I was sort of, yeah, I had sort of short. I was thinking this was just going to plough straight back down again, because that was the market we were used to at that point. But it didn't, it just kept running, and then I've had this upper 3-month supply short entry, which we never, I mean, it's a bit dubious because it's the first candle, but we never didn't quite reach that. So, where have we come off? Bounce kind of in a monthly zone down there, but 3-month level here probably would be preferable. So again, like, yeah, something like this, I just want to see that bigger retracement first, and yeah, and I do think they're going to be coming. I don't, like, everybody's super bullish on the market and saying alt season, and yes, of course this is, you know, we're getting big runs, so of course this is alt season to some extent. Excuse me before I lose my voice, but there is still absolutely no reason why these can't retrace all the way back down, and I think they will. It's just a question of when. So as always in the crypto market, you don't hold forever, you take your profits as and when. Something like this, yes, it might make an all-time high, you know, it is a significant up move, but yeah, I would like to see something like this retrace lower. Maybe not all the way down to here, maybe that is ambitious, but for now we're holding obviously a daily demand or a 2-day demand in there. Okay, weekly, 5-day, it's potentially going to confirm. So it's likely this is going to confirm into a 5-day in the next few hours. As we get some sort of crash before the end of the day. I've got an entry here on 5-day demand at the lows there. You know, it is holding a daily, so it's still in an upward. Let's see what the 3-day. 3 days likely to confirm as well. I'm going to assume these confirm until proven otherwise. So again, like, it's up to you with these structures if you want to enter aggressively on the most local demand, or if you want to wait for the bigger drops if and when they come. But again, for me, this is it's a local downtrend, and we're trying to push through the supply now, but it hasn't happened yet. Why is my cross so much bigger? Small red. Why have I not got small red across anymore? Just let me save a new template. Red cross, save. TradingView keeps changing the size of their icons, which tends to be irritating. So I'll suddenly look at my chart and in 6 months and find all the crosses are like 3 times bigger than they were previously, and then as if they don't obscure my chart enough already, totally obscure my chart. So okay, yeah, structurally for me, things like this. We've had a down move, we've come back up to the top of the down move. I would never want to long on the most immediate demand when we've just come out of a supply. I would want to long on the lower demand at a minimum. So I expect a drop out of here, may or may not get a strong one, may or may not get one at all, but I just never want to long on the immediate demand because I think the probabilities are in favour of at least breaking that demand. We then may or may not get a bounce, an interim bounce even here, or a bounce via a higher high. But again, it's that zigzag versus triangle scenario. Are we going to make a pen? Are we going to make a triangle like that, and this therefore something like this, or are we going to just drop straight through and make the zigzag correction and a giant bull flag? But for me, this is a sort of high risk long entry. This slightly less so because we haven't hit supply at the highs, but again, has hit a daily there. We are up, well, it's just below the daily, we are up a lot. So again, it just depends on the structures. Like some I might be more inclined to long aggressively, but in many cases no, I'd rather wait for the lower zones before looking for longs. So you can see on this, and this is quite a nice example actually of sort of some short re-entries working / failing, bigger picture. So this is what you're looking for when the zones hit. I'm trying to think. So here, for example, there was some level here that was off to the left that obviously I've had a short alerted. It's then come back down, and then I've alerted for a re-entry on this 4-hour supply here. And in this case, obviously the market was still very strong, so it's only had a few little candles, a few hours of down, didn't even make it to the lower demand before coming up and going through. Then it looked like we may have swing failed the high, so again it was looking at the supply for a short entry there. But notice, like, I'm always trying to actually put the entries in a supply, so not just FOMOing, thinking we're going to go down with a really wide stop and then having to watch it come all the way back to your entry. Just enter on some low time frame supply, because at least then the chances are you're going to get some sort of reaction. You can move your stop to break even and make the trade safe, even if it then does, particularly if you're counter trend in a strong trend like this. And then similarly here, so this was kind of one of the early pumps when everything started moving last week. So I didn't have a short entry in at this stage, but I saw it happen. So then I added in, I think it was an hourly by the looks of it. Actually, I think it was a 30-minute supply here. So I added in a possible short on a 30-minute supply there. So again, you've got very good risk to reward. You know, you can have a very tight stop on that, and then it did make a lower low. So it is playing out the correct structure from this 30-minute supply. There's then probably a 15-minute demand or something in there, which I don't have marked, which has ended up holding the whole structure. And let me try and do this properly. I'm not even finding the demand now, but there's something in there anyway. I don't want to go too low time frame, that's holding this full structure. But again, looking for the re-entry, so it's dropped, it has made a lower low, then it's worth looking for a re-entry on the short side. It's dropped, it's made a lower low, but it's still not breaking properly whatever is in here. Then another re-entry, and these are all beyond like 2 hour, 4 hour, whatever demands, supplies have been made in there. And this one then it fails to really make a lower low. It's just stop hunted that low, and you can see the weakness in the sell-off. So then it becomes more apparent that it might go back up again. And then I wasn't on top of this, but then you could have, there's obviously a daily level in there that you could have taken along. So some of them I've been trying to flip backwards and forwards on bias. And this is how you would do it. You're sort of looking at that major zone that you're expecting to have a reaction. You're looking for the re-entries and you're looking for structure. So it's still down, but it's still holding some sort of larger up move before it then comes up to the next supply. So then obviously in here we've got a 2-day inside. And now potentially we're going to make this 5-day and 3-day demand. Yeah, so it's up to you. You can take longs here if you want. Personally, I would wait for lower. Better things. One cat, I sort of commented on briefly already. It's in a weekly supply. The market is strong, so obviously it's already tapped it once there, which we did have a short originally, which played out. It's now come up higher into the weekly, and then this alert would have been, I think this was a 5-day or something. I've had alerted. It went off earlier. 5-day supply inside the weekly. So again, looking just to see if that's going to get any sort of rejection. Again, this is not the highest probability, so I wouldn't necessarily say this is a short you should consider taking. So sometimes I know also on the alerts, like I will just throw them in, and you never know at what point in time I've thrown it in as well, or even I don't know. Like if, for example, I might have had a short entry up here that I would have set around this time, and then if it doesn't test there, and then starts making weekly, monthly demands and comes back up here a year later, then obviously I'm not going to still want that short entry on a daily supply when there's so much that's happened in between. So you need to be quite conscious of doing your own analysis when I'm throwing out these entries. So there is a lot of chop through here, so I don't love this as a short entry. So we'll just see what happens on that. But what's done is done. So then we have no sore shoulders. So yeah, we're likely to make a 5-day demand on this. 4-day, 3-day. Still got that 3-day at the bottom that hasn't been tested. There's a 2-day and there will be a new 2-day. Yeah, there'll be a new 2-day here. Given this is the second test on weekly supply, I'm more comfortable with maybe moving this long up a little bit and potentially looking for a long. I mean, it's a larger zone, which obviously encompasses where the original long was, but I'd rather have a higher alert on that now, I think. So I'm going to make that 5-day demand just down there, and then just see what plays out. So in many of these cases, they're not coming back to here, but that's still what I would wait for. If you're scalping, it's a different situation. This is just the sort of looking at the daily charts and trying to set alerts, and then the scalps happen on the lower time frames when the larger time frames have been hit, or if they have been hit. 1 inch. This one's a bit more of a messy one, I think. I've seen some that look like, some are doing a really nice rounding pattern at the bottom, and others like this are just coming up really spiky and choppy. So this is probably one of the ones I wouldn't love on the higher time frames. So people are buying these because they're so low, but you know, when the whole market's been going up and you're looking at the one coin that really hasn't moved very much at all, has barely got through supply, it becomes significantly riskier. Okay, so in this case we have a 3-month supply. We've tested it here and dropped lower, and now we're just coming up for another test, but it's still at the point of a lower high just. I just made a lower high off here. For some reason I've got a 1-month supply retest in there, which I can't say I love now, to be honest. Let's clean this up a little bit. see what I'm doing. So, a bigger 3-month supply. So the second hit might make a monthly demand. 3 week, yeah, so it's come off 3 week in here. 2 week. It's another one that's still just fighting with local supply and hasn't, so it's one of the ones that hasn't popped yet. I don't really like this zone though, so I'm going to delete this. And mainly I don't like it because it's already hit. I mean, it can still make a lower high and just take this out on a swing failure. This was a strong move down off that wick, but I would have expected the follow-up to happen here. So either we're going to get a lower high in here, or potentially we could go significantly higher on this, like if it is going to break out and break through some of this other supply. But again, we've got a wick here into this monthly supply above. Delete some stuff. Too busy in my chart. So we've got a monthly supply there which rejected here, and then got a wick, so we've got a monthly supply here which wicked to take out that. I think that's why I actually had the monthly in there, because this swing failed that monthly. So when we swing fail a monthly, then it is possible when we come back up for the retest, we will reject the monthly candle that was swing failed. But I think because we've had 2 wicks very, very close to that now, I'm less inclined to do that. And this is just something that could be quite nice if we end up with a breakout. And certainly if we make a monthly demand, then it's worth looking for longs on this. But for now, it does seem to be struggling a bit. Once they slowed down on making the lower high, and like I say, it's very choppy and it hasn't got the nice rounding bottom that we see on a lot of the ones that have played out strongly. So we've got a 5-day demand in there. It's coming off 5-day supply for a second. So it did have a reaction off the 5-day, but didn't get down to any sort of significant demand for a retest really. This was a 2-day. Yeah, and something like this again, there's just too much chop in it for me. So I would either say, you know, if you want a long, I would be longing right down at the bottom here, add a push on this 5-day, but not really anywhere in this zone. And because I consider the whole market to be a bit over-egged, and you just see what's going to happen, I'm a bit loath to put in an aggressive long on this. Some of these also, the other thing we're seeing on quite a few charts, which I'll get to, is these trend line stops down the lows. So if they don't break the high, then there is a fair chance that we're going to get that bigger move that's going to take out all those stops and all, you know, some enormous wick, which wouldn't surprise me. I've got an alert down here for going into 3-week demand, I think. Yeah, it's a little bit higher because there's a 3-day inside it. Yeah, so not something I want to buy because it's still in that monthly supply. Potentially you could look to buy it if it comes down to the 5-day, if this is something you're looking at, but I prefer significantly lower on something like this. And yeah, the short side, throw a short entry in case it does move, but burning question is where. I think I just need to keep an eye on it, because I mean, if it does move, it could move all the way up to this monthly level, so it could have a huge move if it wants to, but you've just got to find the right entry before assuming that, because we are still in lower high downward structure, and even from this candle, the most recent drop, this is still forming a lower high from that. So until it actually makes a higher high, it's not something to be uber bullish on. But yes, I'll leave that one alone at the moment. ARPA. Why is my chart such a mess? This happens to me far too often, and it's when you by mistake turn off this paperclip thing here, which links or syncing your drawings or syncing in the layout or globally, and if you turn that off by mistake, then some charts in the layout will just end up with with none of the drawings, all the drawings don't update across them, and it's intensely irritating. So ARPA, This reminds me quite a lot of Lincoln BNB actually. I have two alerts in here, 3 month and 2 month demand. I'll take one of those out because that's just a wasted alert and I haven't got them to waste. This is a little bit similar to what I was thinking on 1 inch, you know, that it's got all those stops there, and in this case has come down and taken them out. DeFi have been lagging a little bit actually. Let me look at the DeFi chart quickly. This is only DeFi dominance. But yeah, so DeFi dominance got to this monthly supply. It's structurally it's quite different. Well, actually, I suppose it's a dominance chart rather than the market cap charts. I don't know if there is a market cap chart, but so others dominance is in monthly supply as well. DeFi dominance in monthly supply. It got there slightly earlier though, so I guess we've seen that weakness in the DeFi charts, but then they have now kind of come back in the last few days. But again, still at this fairly big dominance level. So BTC dominance, yeah, so I mean, I don't know, overall I sort of see this potentially dying off quite soon, but I still think we've got a little bit further to go. Yeah, I wouldn't mind a DeFi market cap chart. I'll have a look and see if one of those exists later. Okay, so yeah, this is here 3 week supply. So this is, you know, it's more of an upward structure and certainly much more like Lincoln BNB and the larger caps, which is not surprising. We have next monthly supply up here, which had a local test but not a round of retests, so I'll throw in an alert there now if it gets through this current 3 weekly. Take that off. Take that off. Okay, so at the lows, so we have an annual down there that hasn't been tested. Nice. So 3 month, we've now made 3 month demands. So yeah, so I have alerted for the 3 month and 2 month, and really would like a test of that before thinking this is going to take off. So that's a really big level for me in the 70s if we can retest down there. We do have this sort of chop through here, so where we have wicked can, you know, it could have found support just higher, and if it has, it is what it is. But again, not something I want to buy right in supply. If you've got it at the lows, great. Other than that, you either wait for it to break out and buy a retest, or wait for it to test that 3 month demand lower. I think I'm not going to be able to talk in this video as long as I thought, because my voice is already starting to hurt. But yeah, so looking for that long down there, so 3 month and 2 month demand, and then there's a weekly in there as well. Just coming into 3 week, actually it hasn't quite hit the, oh it did hit the alert actually, but it was a bit early, so I've reset it. So coming into 3 week supply, and also has the weekly just below it, so yeah, at the moment I'd be looking for a short on this, and this is more of a short I'd be inclined to take, just because it's still in the range, and has only come off a 3 day at the lows. Yeah, having already tested it. Yeah, so this for me is more of a high probability short, I guess. But the whole market is not really attuned for shorting at the moment, so it's still a risk short. The shorts I prefer at the moment are the ones that have already gone up significantly, because then, you know, you can see they've hit monthly levels or 3 monthly levels at the highs, and then you can get in on the lower time frames quite easily. So we'll get to quite a lot of those, I imagine, in this list. But so these ones are still risky, the ones that remain in range, and maybe something like this is too risky, given it looks quite like Lincoln is very much in this range and looking like it's consolidating for a break of the range. And if DeFi is lagging, this could, I suppose, catch up. But this is a very slow move up here, so yeah, I'm not really seeing strength on that. So this is something that I would be more inclined to look for a short entry on, perhaps when it goes a little bit higher. All these zones have been tested, but this one did have quite a big move off it and hasn't come up and properly tested it. So I think, you know, looking a little bit closer to that cross for a short isn't a bad thing on this. And then, yeah, bigger longs down here, bigger shorts up there. Ace. Okay, so yeah. This one's quite nice with the trading both directions thing. Made a new weekly demand, and then so some of these I started to also put trend line alerts on, which I don't use terribly often, but we have had a whole market of trend lines breaking, so which retail traders are absolutely loving. So I'd be inclined to still put another alert on that weekly, except that it just consolidated a bit too long. So might create a 2-day demand today. Still a little early in the day. So we had this daily downtrend, and now we're back testing the last one before the down move. So a break up to here is more bullish on this, certainly, because this is the last one. So you see what I mean when I say it's the last wave before of the down move. You can see that was where we had the really strong drop off this daily supply, and we're back testing that same level again. So these were the sellers that really wanted to push price down, so it's still in quite a precarious position. However, has now got new weekly demand, etc, etc. So obviously I've had a long flip entry in there. I'm not sure there was a 12-hour and a daily, so I don't know if the alert was for the daily, but it's slightly front around the daily and has bounced on 12 or 8 hour above it. Taken out a lot of stops there. And it's coming up to the top of this wick from the down move, and they actually rejected the same place. So 11.363, it's gone very slightly over 11.373, very slightly over that level, but still only for a swing failure. So yeah, while it's looking bullish on a weekly chart, it is actually still in a downtrend from a wave and retracement perspective, with that being the last down move starting from here. So swing failed that, but it hasn't closed significantly over that. So what I would like to see on this, I'll leave the short here, I would like to see this hit and all the 5-day inside. I'll put a comment on that. 5-day inside higher. If this can come up here, then I'd be more inclined to look for longs on that weekly, or on 2-day or daily or anything else that's been made in between. For now, if anybody's in the long there, that's fine, you can hold on to it, and just see what plays out a bit more on this. It's a new coin obviously, so I don't necessarily consider this to be very strong supply, but it just depends on what point the market's at. I can see obviously Bitcoin's trying to retrace a bit now, and Bitcoin's certainly going to have a drop imminently to take all these stops that it's been creating for the last 24 hours or so. Show you the chart quickly. Yeah, so all these are going to get taken out for sure, very possibly quite soon. I expect this to come back down here because the CME gap's in this area. Anyway, not here to discuss Bitcoin. Okay, so that's ACE, ACH. I'd like to get to one that, you know, that's really broken out, so I can just talk about that and the structure before I go off mic. So this is slightly interesting because it's obviously breaking up a very high time frame trend line up there. So what have we got? Let's go 6 months, 3 months. So it's come off 3 month and 2 months at the lows here. It's had a strong bounce up into, looks like a monthly supply, so up into a monthly supply. A strong bounce from 2 month here up into monthly supply, and it's just triangling. And obviously it's got the larger triangle trend line at the top there, and then we've got a trend line at the bottom here. Is that there? No, there. On the log scale, on the linear scale, obviously it looks somewhat different. may create a monthly supply here. Okay, so we've had a daily in here that's just 2 day that's obviously been run through. May create monthly demand, sorry. So this has come down and it's tested and held 3 weekly demand here, which obviously I've had a long entry on, and then put back in the lower long entry even though it's held at the higher one. So what I do, like when, again, just to reiterate how the alerts are sort of working, is that I'll put in long entry, I'll try for a retest if I'm there in time to see it. I then normally add a long entry, and this one maybe I've deleted off it, or maybe I just didn't get around to it. I'll add the next long entry down, because if the zone then doesn't hold, this is the next level I'd be looking at. If the zone then does hold, I then need to come back, and if it does hold and we then get a bigger move up, then I'll move this up at a later date. But until I see the break of the highs, I don't generally want to add a long entry in here, because you're looking at buyers versus sellers. So these are the first buyers coming in after this touch on the 3 week demand. Those buyers need to show enough strength to make another higher high and break supply. And if they don't, then I'd be looking lower in the 3 week demand, or for a lower than the 3 week demand zone, for the new buyers to be coming back in. If these can break the high and they make a higher high, then you can start looking for the long entries here. And obviously that is not always the case because of the triangle situation, because things can just consolidate before the move. But that base is the basic of the structure you want to look for. So then up here we've got a 2 week and 3 week supply, hence I've got a new short entry a little bit higher, because this is still rejected slightly lower than I would have wanted it. Obviously I did have a short in there, I was going to try and be aggressive maybe. The other thing is that at times, like if the market's moving slowly, I'll put in a lot more aggressive entries, so they're not necessarily just major zones that we're looking for, but I'll look for more aggressive entries just so we get some scalps and some movement in a slower market. So this one, okay, so here we were looking at a weekly supply, and there obviously I don't remember what this was now, but it was obviously looking for a retest for a short entry, and it gave him a couple of days of down, but then went higher again before then coming back to this 3 week zone. There's 2 day supply here, so this is, yeah, not a high probability 2 day particularly. Given we come off the 3 week, we had the bounce and it's gone a bit lower, but the first bounce went straight back up into this 2 week supply, just short of the 2 day. But so we've already had the first rejection on the 2 day supply, which only took a wick lower. So again, then when we come back up, we're expecting to go a bit higher than this one, which is fine. So then we can look at the 2 day just above that. But knowing this is a higher time frame demand, the whole market is bullish. We're breaking this large triangle, not necessarily the strongest short entry. Hence why we can see we've run through it now. Yeah, so and overarchingly, so this particular chart is bullish. And we've got this sort of massive up move which we've retraced, and we're triangling now. And this is something actually I would potentially quite like for a bigger picture long. I need to just figure out where to do that, and then potentially to get all the way up to this monthly up here. I think I'll reserve a bit of judgment on that though. We do still have the 3 week in between, so I'd just like to see, and I'll have a look through some of the rest of these charts as well, because I really want to see you know, what, if any of them, what they do if they have these 3 week supplies. I think a lot of the ones that have failed have been ones that I've had on 2 day supplies similar to this, that have only had a brief and that have already tested. So again, not overly surprised this has gone through that zone. Weekly, the weekly level now new in there. So I guess now I need to see a little bit more of some of these retracements. I want to see if we're going to make monthly demands on things, if we're going to hold up here for the rest of the month. And if we do, then I'll be much more inclined to look for longs. Weekly like this, where you've got such a mess of candles, within this weekly zone, I'm not overly inclined to look for a long entry in unless I see it hit here first. So something like this, I will wait, see what happens when it hits here, and then potentially look at putting a long entry in for the next up move. Because we still could have, I'm trying to think, because we haven't actually hit this 3 months down here. This long entry I would have had in for quite a while as well. Actually inclined to move that lower. That shouldn't be there. Why I put a 2 month level there, because that doesn't exist. This is a monthly. No, I think I'm just being slightly indecisive because it's a triangle and it's indecisive. So thus you start, when the more you look at it, then you see, you know, zones that haven't been tested. So, you know, down here we've got this monthly that hasn't been tested, a 3 week inside that. So that's really, you know, again, perfect world where I'd want to take a long on this. But it has bounced higher, slightly higher than I would have wanted even there, and a lot higher than the perfect world, which would be down here. And is it just going to take off from higher? Yes, very possibly. Yeah, I'm going to leave that one alone for the moment. I can totally understand why that short entry is not working at the moment, but we're still in a 2 weekly supply, so I just need to see that come and retest. And this isn't a solid enough weekly demand for me to look at it for a long. 3 days is tolerable here, and then all the monthly just below that, if it runs through. AGI. Oh yeah, I remember that entry. Okay, so obviously one of the stronger charts. This is potentially going to be a monthly demand, but at the moment I've got that alerted for a 2 weekly demand down there. It's also potentially going to have a 3 week slightly higher. So yeah, obviously didn't come back and test where I wanted it to, wherever I put that entry in. Then I did have, yeah, so I did have this 12 hour, I think it hit, but I just didn't see it in time. Again, this hasn't quite come back to where I would have wanted it to for longs. I don't really like those stops underneath there if it does come down later, so that's just something to be aware of. So we've got a 2 day. There's a whole load of chop and stops through here, so this is going to be a bit of a risky long if it does come here. There's a whole load of mess there. We can see what those wicks are being a bit crazy. Obviously, people trying to sell it back down, but pushing back up again. So that's a 2 day, and so yeah, I had an alert here for the 12 hour retest. I think, I mean, I very possibly had that alert set from back here and probably should have deleted it because it obviously just missed at this point. Yeah, it's just given a brief pause, but not much to write home about on that, and has come through the zone into the higher 3 week, which is not surprising in the slightest. So this is something I would then be much more comfortable looking for a short on, because obviously it's broken out, it's hit a supply. In this case, you know, it has wick quite close to it here, but it is a relatively clean supply. But there is absolutely no reason why at this point you can't be looking for short entries on these types of charts. And these are the much more probable ones than the ones we've looked at so far, which has been looking for shorts in these types of areas, you know, when you're still in that last down move. Let's see what supply. Yeah, so this didn't have a 3 week or here or even a weekly. So it's the ones, you know, which, you know, this had a 3 day supply, and then obviously it really held after multiple tests on that before the bigger move up. So those, you know, these are the ones, the bigger longs that you should be looking for, the ones with this rounded bottom that we can see that I've commented on earlier, and the ones that don't have any significant supply over here. Even better, don't have any significant supply on the monthlies from here, but they're the ones that are moving the most. So keep your eyes open for any of those on the charts, because those are the ones that are much more likely to break out and do the bigger moves. And following that, you're then looking for this retracement opportunity. And then, yeah, just as I guess a quick education on what I'm looking for. So when we hit a zone like this, or even, you know, like this, which obviously just didn't work, I'm just going to hide that, get rid of that alert so I can't see it. So I'm drawing, I'm looking at all the time frames. So I'm going, so there's nothing on the daily up here. Then there's 12 hour, it's there. Then we've got an 8 hour here. So we made an 8 hour, we tested it, gone up again, and we've now created a 12 hour. 4 hour, see, so 4 hour, I just draw these in since I'm here, got one down there, and then we've got a little 4 hour sitting on top here. So there's no reason, you know, if you want to jump into these that have already broken out, you can see how they make, again, as I said before, on the short side, like you're selling and buying local demand, local supply. So don't just FOMO in while it's going up if you don't know where it's going or where it's going to stop. At least try and draw some sort of, you know, so as I go down the time frames, you can see here it's made a 2 hourly demand, so it gives you a good risk to reward. You can enter in that 2 hour demand with your stop just below the 2 hour demand. You know, if you want to scalp, these are actually very easy to do it, but you should still do it with proper, like using proper demand zones. So, you know, you've got a 2 hourly here, you know, pick your time frame that you want to do it on. Got a 2 hourly here. This is quite nice for a 2 hourly perspective, you know, so it's 2 hourly there, it's come back in, tested it, gone up. Made another 2 hourly, tested it, gone up. Similarly, you know, when it hits a high, you're going, what supply has been made? Where's the demand? Has it broken? So, you know, here it hit the alert and it obviously dropped, and then it came down into the daily demand. Has it made new supply? Well, on the 2 hour, no. We go down to the 30 minutes, we've got no new supply here. Even having said that though, even if you wanted to kind of go, okay, maybe there's a 5 minute supply up here or something and you want to short that, you still can do that, but just enter in the right place. Don't like FOMO short down here after it's already moved halfway down with your stop miles away. Then you get some terrible risk to reward and you're not really a trader. But you can look for a short on the retest, then you're here, you're going, okay, well, we've got this 2 hour demand, and you see it wick into that and it's still holding and this is not a big sell-off. You can just go, okay, I'm going to close it, but you're still in profit because you entered somewhere up here in some low time frame. You know, I don't know if this is going to have it because of the wicks, but anyway, so similarly here, you know, we've got 8 hour, we've got 4 hour, 2 hour, so it's now made a 2 hour supply. So again, you know, we're in a 3 weekly zone. There is no reason you can't now try and short this. But what you put in a perfect world, what you want is to see, let me just draw it. So you've got your uptrend happening. This is your last demand on whatever time frame. Up here, you hit a major zone. So in this case, we're in the 3 weekly. You wait for a reaction. That reaction needs to break local demand. In the meantime, it will have likely created some sort of a supply zone in here, and maybe I haven't drawn that as well as I could. Maybe it's better to draw it like that. So it's created a supply zone there that it's rejected. It then breaks local demand, and then you wait for the bounce, and then you sell the retest in that local supply with your stop here or your stop above the highs. You can sell that then down to potentially next demand, or just down to take out this low. And you can do that on any time frame, but again, like rather than just FOMOing short as it hits a zone, you wait till it's made a supply and broken a demand. So in this case, we've made a supply, but it doesn't, this time frame we haven't broken a demand. So I'm dropping down all the time frames, got an hourly in there. I didn't draw that right, but so here, once we get to the 30 minute, you can see we've got a 30 minute demand there. And again, as you drop the time frames, you can just see this much more clearly. There's a 30 minute demand, it's gone up, made a higher high, it's retested the 30 minute demand, it's gone up, it's been unable to make a higher high. At this point, the other thing you can do is go and have a look at the MEXC. I'm not sure what other exchanges this is on, but look at the MEXC books and see, is there some sort of a wall there at 0.15, it's a nice round number. Here it's now trying to finally break demand. It's made, so it made a 30-minute supply at the top here. It was, so from that bounce off the 30-minute demand here, it was unable to make a higher high. It swing failed, dropped, gave you a 30-minute supply, so you can short there. Then there's another 30-minute supply, you can short here. Plus now, then as you go up the time frames, you'll see there's this hourly or 2 hourly that was in there. We've got this other 30-minute here. So it's not a solid 30-minute because we've still got a big wick off here, and this hasn't closed below. So you would still, but so looking at shorting in here is not a terrible thing. You can get the tight stop. And then if you hold it based on this being a 3 weekly supply, it's somewhat risky in this with the strength of the market we've got at the moment. You can, what you're trying to do is get the high risk to reward where your stop is really tight, but your profit target is much lower. So you can then get a very high risk to reward. Or you take the safer trade where you just enter here and you just expect it to take out the low. So this isn't a bad setup, it's not perfect, like really you would have wanted that red candle to get below this wick for it to be a nicer short there, but that is a short possibility. Similarly with this quadruple top you've got going on here, a swing fail of here is something you could look for. So you're just monitoring the chart and monitoring the low time frames to see when it's going to give you breakdowns in structure. So we go down the 15-minute and we can see, all right, well it's bounced here because this is a 15-minute. And if you watch my Bitcoin educational video yesterday, you'll see that I prefer this type of demand to this type of the 30-minute that we have up here, because this is a whole choppy mess. Didn't move away really quickly from the zone. This 15-minute is better. Somebody stopped a big price move in its tracks, and then it went straight through and potentially trapped them in there. Thus you see when it's come back here, it's got a big wick off it. So it's all these different things you're looking at on all the different time frames to ascertain whether you want to take an entry or not. The only disclaimer I would give on this is I'm going very low time frame now for something that's really gone up a lot. So, you know, when you've got multiple days of uptrend to then start shorting on a 15-minute chart is obviously highly risky. So I would probably, like if you're in a massive uptrend and you're looking at having hit a major weekly supply or something like that, again, watching the reactions, but I'd probably be more inclined to wait for like 4 hour, 1 hour, etc. than charting 15-minute. But again, these are all the zones, you know, if you do want to do those FOMO and scalp entries, there's no reason you can't do those. Because again, here, you know, like it might give you a reaction off here, you know, maybe it won't make a lower low because it's still liking this 15-minute, but again, might just give you some movement / consolidation in here such that you can go in, put your stop to break even and just take 1 or 2 R off it. So you can see now it's breaking back up through this 30-minute because it was a weak 30-minute supply. And then the other thing is to be super conscious of actually when you're trying to do these scalps is that you don't just flip new demand. So if this comes up here now, this and closes up here, we've got a while till it closes, but it could create a new 30-minute demand in there. So you just need to be a little bit careful and just monitor what you're doing on all these charts. There you go, you can see it sort of rejected straight off that 30-minute there. Whether it's going to last is another matter. My 2 hour, so we do have the 2 hour in there. So the quadruple stop thing at the highs is the risk here. And the fact obviously we're in a giant uptrend. The other thing to do, I guess, at this point would be to align it with Bitcoin. You know, if you're again looking for the bigger move down, like is Bitcoin at the point where it's going to give you the bigger move down? Because it's generally when the stars align is when we get the bigger moves. That doesn't mean it's not going to reject now, but it just might mean it's slower. It might mean it hangs out and consolidates up here a bit more and then takes another move before the whole market is ready to drop. But there'll be examples of this throughout where some have dropped, some haven't, etc. Like for example, I can show you a couple of examples before. Before I go off mic shortly, so NMR was a nice example. So it was one where I was looking for short re-entry. So again, it had gone up a lot. It wasn't at a zone that I particularly liked. you know, okay, it's a giant, so it could have rejected there, but it wasn't exactly in a particularly good zone. This was obviously the better level, 3-month level that you can see it's hit there. But we did have a nice drop down off that, and then while we didn't get these entries, I think I had this entry, for example, from back here. This is a fine example of an entry that's just been in there far too long, and when it's come back up, it hasn't held. Okay, so another good example. So here we had an 8-hour demand, a poor demand, because it didn't make a new high, so it broke down to the next zone, 12-hour here, and I did have a long entry in there. It didn't get very far, and it then made a 12-hour supply, so I then flipped short, and again we got a nice scalp off that, but again it's now just consolidated in here, you know, and it held that short for a while, and certainly gave plenty of opportunities if anybody took that short to either take a minuscule amount of profit or to get out break even. Then I was just kind of watching this. I think I did as of yesterday. I had an alert set for a break of this trend line, but it never did, and it just carried on ticking up. Then this short, obviously I had left in, but I probably should have deleted by after all that consolidation, but still worth watching. I've made those comments before. I don't know what it was there. Maybe it was the 8-hour. It's kind of an indirect 8-hour supply here, so maybe that's what I was looking at with that short. Obviously hasn't gone very far at all in this case before breaking higher, but again the bigger picture on this was this, the critical thing is that this high, or the high you're making, has to be in a decent zone to start with, and this wasn't. Thus it was able to consolidate here to move higher because the selling just wasn't that strong here. It was strong enough to break the immediate demand, but it wasn't strong enough to break this 12-hour down here, or 8-hour. No, it was a 12-hour. So that was the first 12 hours. So really it's held this upward structure from a 12-hour perspective, and now has made a weekly demand. So yeah, hence I've got a new weekly long entry in on that one. Now it's hit 3-month supply. So it's had a wick through it before, so that's the 3-month there. We'll add a monthly alert up here now, just in case it pushes higher while I'm not looking. But obviously now it's in a much better zone to be looking for that higher time frame short. So again, as I just explained on AGI, you know, that's how you're looking at it and monitoring it. You're going, right, where's my news? We've got the new weekly that I already had in there. We should go down the time frames. Nothing on 5-day, 4-day, 3 days. So there's a 3-day level here. It's offset, so I don't tend to draw the box. I prefer it probably to go to the weekly inside, which may or may not happen. Nothing on any of the other lower time frames, and then we've got still to get, you know, this is the next 12-hour, which has had a tap that's taken it that last move to the 3-month. So something like this, you're now waiting, is it going to break this 12-hour? So again, the structure you want is for it to break through the first major zone. Or, you know, if you want to go tighter and do 8, 4 or 1 hour, whatever's in here, that's fine, but this is from a 12-hour perspective. You'd be waiting for it to break that zone, come back down potentially into the one below, then you can look to short a retest if it's made new supply here. In this case, you do need to be conscious that we've got a weekly zone in here, so if it dives all the way straight back down into here, then I probably would be slightly more wary of looking for shorts, because this could very then easily just do that straight back up again. But again, it's all a question of what supply or demand has been created in the interim, and how you choose to enter your trades, whether you want to hold, whether you want to be a swing trader or a scalper. The way I'm explaining this is all for scalping, or you can hold them for swings, but they're scalp entries. And it's up to you, like say there's options, so you can say, right, we've hit a 3-month supply here, you're going to enter this with a short, you're going to put your stop up here, and you're going to go to the beach. That's fine, if that's the way you want to trade. That for me doesn't work, because A, I haven't got the patience, and B, I prefer higher risk to reward. So on this, like if you were saying this is a monthly downtrend, this is the monthly chart, it's hit a monthly supply, or maybe you wait at least till that monthly supply, where you're saying it's in a 3-month, so where's your target on the 3-month? Well, we've come up from a 3-month demand here. If it's unable to break this 3-month supply, then you might want to target all the way down here. Still only 1.4R, that's certainly not something on a trade I'd take, but it is up to you, like if that is the kind of swing trades you're looking for. Other options, this is likely to create a monthly demand in here. You could do the same trade, shouldn't have taken it off, you know, do the same trade here, you know, keep a smaller position size or just like a stop closer with a target that's more reasonable on a monthly demand, given we're in this monthly uptrend, even if we are in a 3 monthly downtrend, because, you know, it might come back to here and then bounce and could go higher in the 3 month, make a lower high, etc., and then you won't be holding as long. The risk to reward is slightly better. More preferable, you wait for the lower time frames, and again, it doesn't have to be all the way down to the hourly or 4 hour, you know, but you wait for the daily or the 12 hour to tell you when you're seeing that reversal. If you see the 12-hour demand break, then you can enter on a short, put your stop above the high, and see what happens. What will be, will be. But always enter in some sort of a supply or demand. Anyway, I hope that's helpful for sort of having how to get in and out of trades. I think I was going to show one more, but I can't remember. Yeah, before I go offline, my throat is starting to cry. PHB, that was my baby that I really was promoting because I really liked this giant triangle breakout we had, and it took off before giving me another re-entry, of course. What was I going to comment on? RSS3 gave a really nice long entry. So a lot of these long entries I've shared with you anyway throughout. You know, all these 3-week demands that have held, weekly, 2-week, 3-week demands. Some of these rejections here. So I'll run through the rest of the charts, like I say, with mic off. Some of these not worked so well. So SC didn't hold the retest here again. It's had too strong a move. So sorry, it's moved too far. I still would have thought actually would get some sort of reaction. I guess it got a low time frame reaction off the 4 hour here, got a wick, and then this next one it's now taken it out, but it's trying to reject. But again, we're still in an uptrend. So while I'm putting these shorts, you are looking at this as a bigger uptrend until we see the lower high forming in the major supply. So obviously the market isn't quite ready for it yet, so some of the aggressive shorts that I've had in, even on the things that have gone up a lot like SC, NMR, FLR is the same, I think, they've now broken out, or they're trying to break out the highs. So I need to add new entries. I'll add a new short on this up here. Trying to think if there's anything else exciting I want to comment on. Some of these making monthly supply. I think there's at least one that's gone straight through a zone like this. It might be Pepe 2. Nope, not monthly anyway. Such a mix anyway. Like, yeah, so I say I need to run through all these and update all the zones. This I've had a short in for today. Looks like it's going to take it out. Similar to one of the ones we looked at earlier on, actually one cat maybe. But yeah, like I say, any zone, like, it doesn't phase me if a zone fails, because any zone is just for watching and then for assessing what the structure's doing as and when it gets there. So in this case, you can clearly see we're in a range. So yes, while we have supply at the top of the range, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to hold. And particularly here, the other thing, again, to be aware of is if we have stacked supply like this, so we have a 5-day on top of another 5-day, quite often it will go to the higher one. But I tend to just leave the alerts below, because then you can just watch this general zone and see what's happening. But yeah, it's very, very much looking at the structure and saying, are we going to continue? Are we getting continuation, or was this a breakdown? If this was a breakdown, if this is a close down here, then you'd be much more likely to get a decent short off the supply retest. In this case, it's only wicked below, so we're less likely to get a decent short from here. Anyway, my voice is now fading dismally, so I'm going to take a little break, and then I will come back and I'll just continue the stream and do all the rest of these million alts slightly more quickly, so we've got alerts updated for later. And then I'm just going to need to, I had a quiet week last week because I wasn't feeling terribly well, so I will hopefully be able to keep on top of things a little bit better. Now I'm feeling a bit better. So I'll have a little bit break and I'll be back shortly. So I just realised my alerts system has now just broken. They're not running through. The last few haven't run through to Telegram, so I need to sign off so I can fix it. And this is going a bit slower than I thought anyway, and I don't really want to do hours and hours of streams on alts that I'm updating without the mic anymore. So yeah, I'm going to sign off for now, and hope you're all having a good day. Ciao.